So for our guided reading today, we are going to continue on with our visualizing and practicing our skills in visualizing when reading. But we're also going to also have a little focus on expression whilst we read aloud. Now, expression is really important in our reading because expression is the ability to change our voice to show a certain feeling in a text. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little example of what this looks like. Let's just say I had a book here and it said, Mr. Roberts really enjoyed the party. Okay, my expression is going to determine how I feel about that. And if I read that as Mr. Roberts really enjoyed the party, there's not much expression in that. I'm not really understanding the feeling of Mr. Roberts, am I? But if I read it as Mr. Roberts really enjoyed the party, I'm using lots of expression in my voice and it is creating feeling. It is creating more meaning for our reading as well. So I'm going to read this book to you. It's called Concrete Jungle. Okay, and then you're going to do a little task based on this book. So read along with me, and I'm going to try and see when I'm going to be using lots of expression to portray a way that a certain character is feeling, because not every character feels the same in books. Characters go through a range of different emotions like happy and sad and worried and confused, and the way that we read that out loud can help portray that feeling, and it's really valuable skill to have when reading. So read along. This is Concrete Jungle by Finea, that's a hard name, Tuakoi, and it's illustrated by Peter Lole. It's not fair, said Maria. She threw the letter down on her bed. Dad stopped at Maria's door and looked in. What's not fair? He asked. Maria sighed. That letter from Eric, she said. It's about his new school. It sounds so cool. He plays on the grass with his friends at break time, and his class has been planting a garden. Why can't we do stuff like that at our school? Dad laughed. Your cousin lives in the country, Maria. There's lots of space for trees and grass at his school. I think there's even a creek nearby. Maria made a face. Like I said, she grumbled, it's just not fair. There are things you can do in the city that Eric can't do in the country, said Dad. There are good things about both places. They're just different. Maria thought about her school. It had concrete buildings and a concrete playground with concrete walls. She shook her head. There's no grass and there are no trees either. There's nothing green at our school. Can you tell the way that I'm speaking, the way that I'm using expression when I'm reading, creates a certain feeling and helps us to understand the text a little bit more? We can understand the way that Maria is feeling. Why don't you talk to Mr. Rico? Dad said. Maybe you could plant a garden. We could write down some ideas together. You could take them to school tomorrow. That night, Dad helped Maria to write a list. Maria put the list in her book bag to take to school the next day. At school the next morning, Maria told her class about the trees and garden at Eric's school. She looked at Mr. Rico. It would be so cool if we could plant a garden at our school too, she said. Mr. Rico smiled. That sounds like a great idea, he said. But I'll have to ask Miss Jackson. If she likes your idea, we'll talk about it some more. At lunchtime, Maria and her friend Carrie made a poster. They drew a picture of a garden with trees and flowers. Under the picture, Maria wrote, Are you tired of our concrete playground? Would you like to see some trees and plants at our school? We need your ideas. After lunch, Maria gave Mr. Rico her list of ideas and the poster, and he put them on the board. Miss Jackson likes Maria's idea, Mr. Rico told the class. She wants us to write a letter to the school board to ask for permission. Maria, would you like to tell us more about your idea? Maria grinned. Her plan was working. She pointed at her poster. Miss Jackson likes Maria's idea, Mr. Rico told the class. She wants us to write a letter to the school board to ask for permission. Maria, would you like to tell us more about your idea? Maria grinned. Her plan was working. She pointed at the poster. I think we should start by... The door opened, and Miss Jackson came in. She sat down at the back of the class. Maria looked at her nervously. Go on, Maria, said Miss Jackson, smiling. I'm here to find out more about your idea. Okay, said Maria. I think we need to brainstorm some ideas on how to make a garden. I'll write your ideas on the board, said Mr. Rico. He wrote ideas at the top of the board. I'd like some trees, Maria said. Mr. Rico wrote trees under the heading. And flowers, added Carey. Yeah, said Mano. Big, bright flowers. I'd like some birds or butterflies at our school, said Anisha. Some bushes would be nice, Jinho said. Alex grinned. I'd like some dinosaurs. Everyone laughed. We could get a bench, said Jose. That's a great idea, replied Miss Jackson. A place to sit at break time. Maybe we could have a pond too, said Carey. I'd rather have a waterfall, said Anisha. A waterfall, said Jinho. How could we have a waterfall at school? We can't even have trees, said Anisha. There's no dirt to plant them in. Even if we planted them in big pots, they'd take too long to grow. The other kids nodded. Maria hung her head. The plan was all going wrong. She felt tears in her eyes, and she turned towards the board so that no one would see them. She looked at the picture of the garden on the poster. It looked blurry through her tears. All the colours ran together like wet paint. And it gave her another idea. I know, she said. Why don't we paint a garden on the concrete wall that goes around the playground? Everyone started talking excitedly. You mean we could paint a mural, said Mr. Rico. That's a good idea. My dad's an artist. He might be able to paint an outline for the mural on the wall, said Carey. My mum has some paint, said Anisha. I'll ask if I can bring some. I can bring some too, said Jose. I'll get Dad to ask at the hardware shop, said Mano. They might give us some paint. My mum paints houses, said Sam. I could bring some paintbrushes. Mr. Rico told the children that they would write a letter to the school board in class. They could also draw some plans for the mural during art class. I'll ask the school board if they'll give us the money to buy a bench, Miss Jackson said. I think we need a paint a garden day, said Mr. Rico. On Friday, the day before Paint a Garden Day, the class gave Carey's dad the plan for the mural. Then he began painting the outline of the picture on the wall. The next day, lots of people turned out to help. Mums, dads, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, and grandparents. The woman from the hardware shop was there too. They painted huge trees, bright flowers, and plants of all shapes and sizes. Anisha painted birds and butterflies, and Carey painted a pond. Alex painted dinosaurs peeking out from behind the tree. Jose helped Miss Jackson decide where to put the bench. By 3 o'clock, they were finished. The concrete wall was now a huge, beautiful garden, and there was a bench to sit on. Everyone stood back and looked at their work. Wow, said Maria. It's awesome. It's not really a garden, though, is it? Said Alex. He looked at his dinosaurs and grinned. Not really, laughed Mr. Rico. It's more of a jungle, isn't it? Maria grinned too. It's a concrete jungle, she said happily. What a cool story. Now, what I'd like you guys to do is complete your own drawing of your own concrete jungle. Use your visualizing to visualize your own concrete jungle and draw a picture of it and stick it on the next slide. After that, you can have a go reading your own book on Wishka and focus on your expression whilst you read out loud.